that. But before we do that, we had some AFC North news where Andy Dalton, former quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals, last time we were on, we were talking about how Dalton, what that dynamic would be between him and Joe Burrow. Would they release him? Would they keep him? He was supposed to make, I think, $17.5 million. And then literally the next day they end up releasing him. Reports came out that I think the Jaguars and the Patriots were in the mix to signing Dalton, but he ended up signing with the Cowboys on a 1-year, $7 million deal, man. So what was your reaction to that, man, when you saw that?
I think it made sense. There were rumors about him going to the Cowboys leading up to him actually signing anyway. And it's getting interesting with this whole Dak stuff, and we've talked about this a little bit before, where they don't really want to pay him that long-term deal because that's going to obviously take away from them signing some other pieces and talent on the team. And if you feel the margin of how good your quarterback is between Dak and Andy Dalton is not that much, but you could save, I don't know, $25 million.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, I could see why you would want to do that if you're the Cowboys. And he's from, holy crap, man.
Get it off your chest, Deke. I see you, baby.
My throat is clogged up right now. He's from Dallas. And little homecoming.
TCU boy.
But here's the thing. It's only for 1 year, so you're just kind of wondering. I think it makes sense on his behalf then having the 1 year, because if for some reason in this year you become the starter or you're so familiar with the system and Dak blows up last few weeks of the season and Jerry has some confidence in you, even though you didn't get the actual playing time, maybe he would take a 1 or 2 year flyer on you next year, draft a rookie, but have you be the starter. So I think it's a good, I mean, $7 million too, compared to Jameis's contract of $1.1 million.
And that incentive $7 million, like $7 million.
Yeah. So I think for Dalton and the Cowboys, I mean, it makes sense, definitely.
Now, I agree with you on those topics, man. I do think that for Dalton, it makes a ton of sense. You're going to get a chance to go into a situation where they say that they love Dak, but they haven't backed it up with their actions in terms of the contract. Now, we've heard the reports that they've offered Dak over $30 million, but we don't know what the guarantee money is in that contract. So as we all know, when it comes to these numbers, it can say a 5-year contract for $300 million. But if it's only 90 guaranteed or 80 guaranteed, that's the only thing we can really go off of. So until we see that, there's no guarantee that they absolutely love Dak in that regard. So if you're Andy Dalton and you're coming on this 1-year deal and you've had success in this league, I mean, it was probably a couple episodes ago, I'm over here going to bat for Andy Dalton, listening off all his accolades, listening off everything that he's done. And when you compare him to some of these other young quarterbacks in this league, the Carson Wentz's, the Dak Prescott's, that new wave right there, his numbers stack up, and some of them, his numbers are better in terms of win-loss percentages and things like that.
Yep.
So if you're Andy Dalton, you have to be saying to yourself, man, I got a chance to come in here, and if they don't sign Dak to a long-term deal, well, we know how those 1-year deals go for the quarterback that's there, in terms of if they don't really love him, they might hit him with the, hey, we want to see Dalton, see what he can do for a little bit so we can know what we have going forward. That could be a great situation for Dalton. So everything does line up for him in that regard. And if you're the Cowboys, it makes perfect sense, because if you get a deal done with Dak, okay, great. You have a very good backup, a more than capable backup, something that we always preach about, that we kind of differ on sometimes in terms of the quality of backup that you need. But he definitely is in that mode. If you're talking about Dalton coming in as your number 2, you'll feel very, very confident in him in that regard. But then also, if you're the Cowboys, you're saying, hey, if things do work out, I mean, that's if things work out with Dak, right? If things work out, you got a high quality backup for the season. But now on the flip side, if things don't work out with Dak, the margin between Dak and Dalton is not that far. Now, I do feel like Dak's the better quarterback.
Yeah, same.
But I don't think it's a gap that we're talking about when we compare like a Drew Brees to a Josh Rosen, for example. It's not that drastic. It's a lot closer.
Or even like Drew Brees versus Garoppolo,
right?
Or someone in like the 20s.
It's just not that big of a drop off. So if you're the Cowboys, you're saying, hey man, we can still win with Dalton if things don't work out. And then say next year we go to the draft and we can't get that quarterback that we absolutely love, we still can get the job done with Dalton, because it's not that big of a drop off when you look at the talent that's around him on offense and defense. Now, I think the person that this disrespects the most is Dak Prescott.
Definitely.
He definitely gets the short end of the stick because now the Cowboys have that leverage in terms of these negotiations. In terms of, hey, man, we were going to pay you this, but now we don't necessarily need to pay you that because we have this guy right here. So you can either play under this franchise tag, you can either take this deal that we're offering you, or if we absolutely just change our mind, we could just say, bump it, pull the tag, and roll with Dalton. We've seen, I think the Panthers did that with Josh Norman before. We've seen that. Now, I don't think it will happen, but that is some of the alternatives that they have. Whereas for Dak, he's losing his leverage in that regard now because he can't sit here and play the hardball of, well, without me, who are you going to have out there this year? If I hold out, who are you going to put out there this year? Now that conversation goes out the window because now the Cowboys are saying, well, look, we have a guy who's under contract. We have a guy who's won before. We have a guy who's very capable, and we have a guy who's on a 1-year deal who's going to want to go out there and get an opportunity, get a game or two. And if he does, that's only going to make him more money. So it really hurts Dak in that regard. And I mean, as a player, I viewed it as very disrespectful because I'm like, man, if I put in all this work for you, I've won these games for you. I was a part of the transition from the Tony Romo era to me. And we've been to the playoffs 2 years out of the 4 years that I was there. I was a 4th round pick. I got paid $2 million last year. $2 million. All these other guys on the team, they got paid, but me. And you bring this guy for 1 year, $7 million. Like I'm feeling some type of way about that. And I think this is very different than when we're talking about Big Ben.
I was going to ask you that then because it seems like there will be a little bit more controversy here, especially with it being in Dallas. They're a lot, like we mentioned, they're a lot closer in talent than Ben versus Jameis, Breeze versus
and I'll even tell
any
you
of these other guys.
Less than the talent standpoint, why it's disrespectful. Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, not disrespectful. Big Ben, and if you would have brought in Cam Newton or Jameis Winston, not disrespectful, and here's why. When you look at Big Ben, when you look at Aaron Rodgers, what's the thing that both of those guys have in common that Dak doesn't have? Not winning.
Well, Super Bowls, but they got the guaranteed contracts.
They already got their contracts. That's it. They already have gotten paid. So it's not an issue of, man, am I going to get paid? It didn't matter who you brought in to back up Big Ben. Big Ben is going to make $34 million. He's going to be out there, period. When you look at Aaron Rodgers, I don't care if you draft Jordan Love because he's still getting his guaranteed money. He's paid. He's good. Dak was a 4th round quarterback. He hasn't seen any of that money. What does Ben and Aaron Rodgers also have in common? When were they drafted?
Way back. 04, 05. Yeah. So they have a lot more money.
A lot more money on top of that. So Dak has not got paid yet. And now you're bringing in a guy who wasn't homegrown, who you're bringing in from an organization that was very dysfunctional. And you're giving him, hey, man, take the $7 million right now. We're good. Before I even get my check. Like, that's an issue. That's the biggest thing that I have in terms of why I view it as disrespectful. Now, if Dak would have already had a deal in place, well, hey, man, I don't care about you bringing in Dalton for the $7 million. That's fine. Yeah. But the fact that you're going to pay this guy $7 million and you haven't paid me yet, and people, he's going to get the franchise tag. We still already know how the franchise tag thing works, man. If it plays out for him, great, and he gets a long-term deal, great. If he gets hurt, could be bad for him. They also have the leverage of saying, we can pull that tag at any time also prior to the season starting. So it isn't as glamorous as it seems, and it forces him into a box. And as we talked about even with Bud Dupree, you lose money on that tag compared to if you were able to hit the open market. So that's my biggest issue with that whole situation with Dalton coming over there is, like I said, great move for Dalton, great move from a business standpoint for the Cowboys, but man, it's a slap in the face to Dak.
Yeah. This type of stuff is something we should remember when, we're looking back 6 months to a year and everyone's saying, man, take the hometown discount. Not even just a hometown discount, but you throw into, the Dallas brand, like Jerry's going to take care of you, commercials.
You're going to make so much money off the field. You're good.
But then this happens. Now, the other question is, though, some of these contracts that have been offered, do we really know the guaranteed money?
That's the thing.
Because once you're hearing 30 million, 33 million, 35 million a year, you're just like, all right, you should have taken that at some point.
But we don't know what
it could have been like a Le'Veon Bell situation where the guaranteed money wasn't completely there.
Yeah. I mean, and that was a big issue when you looked at the contract the Steelers did offer L. Bell. Man, this $70 million over 4 or 5 years, $70 million. But when you looked at the guaranteed portion, the guaranteed portion was a joke. And then they hit you with rolling guarantees after that. No, I don't want rolling guarantees. I need full guarantees. It's a difference.
Yeah. So what do you think needs to happen for them to pull the trigger on Dak and move to Dalton? Does it have to be simply the Cowboys as a team are losing, or is it, say, they're 500 and Dak's just not playing that well?
I think the way it would happen, first off, the media would push for that way sooner than the Cowboys would. That's just media in general. That's just fans in general. But if you're a player, you're not concerned necessarily about that. You know, if you're Dak, you're going to get the opportunity to at least, I mean, you could be playing absolute terrible trash, turning the ball over. You're going to get to at least game 6 just off of the strength of if you're playing on the franchise.
Yeah, I'm thinking at least midseason, right?
And it's different too. Like, we're talking about this is if he doesn't get a long-term deal done this offseason, if he just played under the franchise tag mid-season, and he would have to be playing absolutely terrible. If he's playing how Dak's been playing, though, I don't really think it even comes across like that. But
he hasn't really had that bad of a year.
Seasons, yeah.
No.
Like, this was quote unquote a bad year for him, and he still was balling out. Like, that's the thing with him. But you also have to realize when you're playing in Dallas in the spotlight, you're going to be nitpicked. You're going to be overanalyzed because it's such a polarizing franchise. They're always talked about. So I think that plays into why our opinions may be what it is on Dak, because it's constantly talked about. It's constantly thrown in your face. If he does anything good, it's viewed as great. If he does anything bad, it's viewed as terrible.
Yep.
He can't just have, oh, it was just a good game, or it was an okay game. He's not allowed to have that just because of the spotlight he's in and just how polarizing he is from a national standpoint. And I think that is what skews our vision and our opinions on him sometimes. But he's never had a bad season.
No.
Like, that's the thing that's crazy. So when you look at him saying that he wants this money, you know, he's saying he wants to be the highest paid guy over at that position, or one of the highest paid guys, or at least more than Carson Wentz. When you look at what he's saying and what his numbers are, they are justified in that regard. Mm-hmm. But our perception is going to always be so either one way this way or one way that way, depending on how you view him from a national standpoint. And I think that's something that he has to deal with as well.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. Definitely.
Absolutely.
That is definitely a blessing and a curse, because I'm wondering how much the whole, you know what I like, the clutch moments, the it factor, the fourth quarter, and that's something that's not really on his resume. Mm-hmm. So even if he is having a really good season, if somehow he falters in a couple games in fourth quarters, then that's kind of your reputation then. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, it's just unfortunate. I'll put it that way for his long-term I guess, outlook for being a starter. Mm-hmm. But we'll see what happens, man. It's going to be interesting.
Definitely is, man. So that's my feelings on that whole thing, man. It's just crazy, crazy, crazy.
Yeah, so as a GM, you wouldn't have done that then?
Me personally, not. But I already told you, too, I'm more, if this guy's homegrown, I want to take care of him. Because not only is it important to take care of the guys that you draft, but it also sends a message to the next wave of guys. Because they're going to say, hey, man, these guys pay their own. If you ball out, they're going to take care of you. Whereas the message this sends right now is, if you ball out and y'all can't agree on the contract, they bringing somebody in here to replace you. How you feel about that? And it's like, man, he was a 4th round pick. It's not like he was a first rounder where he saw money up front. He's not like Zeke, where Zeke saw a ton of money up front. When Zeke was talking about holding out, when he was in Cabo working out, he was already going to be getting paid some millions for that season. It was different than Dak, who was he was going a glorified thousandaire.
Yeah.
Like, it's different levels to that contract as a 4th rounder versus a 1st rounder. Even Amari Cooper. Remember Amari Cooper, they were like, is he going to hold out? He has no need to hold out because the money he was scheduled to make, he was good because he was a 1st rounder. It's different if you're a 4th round guy. And I think that's the thing, that if you're the next wave of draft picks for these Cowboys, you're looking like, dude, like, that's a crazy situation. This is, quote unquote, the face of the franchise, the starting quarterback for the past 4 years. Like, how do you not take care of him, but you bringing in other guys? You bringing in a replacement for him already.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I would have done the same thing. I just would have rolled with Dak. From a bird's eye view, I think we can all say, yeah, Dalton, he's had some stats. He's put up some decent numbers over the years. I just don't think he's that good, one. But two, I do like the idea of, all right, you have Dak, this is our guy. Right. We're gonna show you that he's our guy. That's my thing too.
I look at it like, man, if we
I don't want the contract. I don't want that type of stuff. I just want, all right, Dak's our guy. If it doesn't work out, then we'll figure it out next season. I'll trade the house for Lawrence.
Understandable.